Hello, my name is Cloud and this is my run of Ghost of Yōtei Legends All Incursions. Legends is a standalone addition to the main Ghost of Yōtei game that released just around the middle of March, so this is eligible for the new game submission period. Incursions are these 3-4 part long levels that are meant for 2 to 4 players that each culminate in a big boss fight at the end. So a lot of the difficulty here is going to come from the fact, obviously, that I'm playing on solo. We've got a lot to talk about. There are no really glitches in this run, but there's a lot of cool tech. Starting off here, no real name for this, but this ends up being faster than running when we do a little crouch stab here. And there's a lot of the game mechanics that we'll go into as well. So our first level here, we're going to be doing a little bit of stealth, just running past all these guys. This one is definitely one of the more interesting ones because we are gated by, well, an actual literal gate here, but it's surrounded by many enemies, more than we should be equipped to handle on our own. And killing them is actually technically losing time because all we have to do to get through this part is to damage those gates and destroy them to move on to the next portion. Unfortunately, there's a lot of guys on our heels, so we're going to come up here and we're going to activate our skill. This skill is called Empowered Hunt, and what it does is it lets you shoot your bow faster and further. So we're able to kind of knock down the gate over there in basically just one cycle of our skill. And we are playing as the archer character. This is the highest DPS character in the game, but she's a bit of a glass cannon, so we're gonna have to be very careful and try not to get hit and maintain our health, especially from these gunners here. As you can see, they do a lot of damage and they often fire in unison. So our bow obviously is very strong as the archer character, and kind of our second weapon of choice is going to be this chain and hook here, or called the kusarigama. As you can see, we can use it for crowd control, kind of get these guys out of our face so I can activate the checkpoint here. And it also fills up my ultimate meter quite quickly, hitting these guys with the kusarigama spin attack. So I'm just going to farm for ult here so I can take care of these gunners there right away to avoid getting popped. Now, in terms of our health, playing on the lowest difficulty setting is already enough of a challenge, but on this difficulty setting we are afforded kind of 2 retries. So if I do get downed, I'll be able to come back to life 2 times. So I mentioned how killing these guys is technically time lost, but there's just so many of them here. We're gonna pop Empowered Hunt and get them out of our way before we start damaging down that gate in front of us. So speaking of my bows as well, I actually have 2 bows. I have a long bow, or the Yumi, and the short bow, or the Hankyu. So I use my Yumi kind of for long range shots. It does more damage, but the draw time is quite a bit slower. So I like to use it to like snipe these gates from afar, or if enemies are far, I prefer to use the Yumi. Up close, I'll go with the short bow. Now my short bow is a special one called a Hurricane Hankyu, and what it can do is it fires very quickly and it auto aims. So it'll just target an enemy nearby you, and all you have to do is tap, and it'll fire very fast. And then combined with the added attack speed of Empowered Hunt, we can get just insanely quick DPS. So there's my ult again. We're just going to use that to clear out some of these guys and farm up a bit. I also use this spin attack for farming health. If I get hit, then it fills up my resolve where I'm able to kind of regain health. So now we're just a couple pops away. And you'll notice I'm doing this tech where I'm kind of jumping and pulling the bow out midair. Normally when you draw the bow in a walking state, you move really slow. But if I jump and pull out the bow midair, I'll be able to gain a little bit more ground while I'm kind of priming up my next shot. This is something that was not possible in the original version of Legends that came out back in 2020, 2021. So this is a very nice addition to the game. Now, Yōtei Legends is, in my opinion, quite a bit more difficult. Enemies are super aggressive, crazy fast combos. Hopefully we won't get caught in any of those. Most enemies in the game, even simple ones, can kind of 0 to death combo you if you're not careful. So for this part, we're going to play it a little bit stealthy as well. We have these trees that we're supposed to destroy. And these weak points, we can hit them. It does most of the damage. And the weak point will grow back. So I'm just going to try to snipe these ones in the distance while I'm hiding behind the wall here to avoid getting shot by these gunners. This is much quicker than just trying to run out there and cut them down myself. And And once we've taken down all these trees, we can then break the curse gate and move on to the final section of incursion number 1. So we're just going to come here. This is where things start to get pretty hectic. This part of the route is not very scripted at all. We're basically just trying to run around and pick off the rest of these trees while dealing with the enemies here. Trying not to get hit. Something about the hunter. I mentioned the hunter has very strong DPS, or very high DPS rather. To kind of compensate for that, the issue is that the archer character relies on ammo. So the ammo situation is always a little bit dire. I've had to use most of my perks for my build to spec into regaining ammo as quickly as possible. So when I pop my ultimate, I can regain ammo. There's little ammo drops around too, which are very nice. However, sometimes they're kind of far away from the objective that we need to reach. So we end up having to lose a little bit of time going out of our way for these ammo drops. And of course, there's ammo that we can pick up off the ground from down enemies. These guys, normally they station a lot closer to me, but they were up here for some reason. So we're just gonna have to go a little bit out of our way to take them out as we get the rest of these trees down so we can break down the gates. And again, relying pretty heavily on that spin move. That's about the only melee that I'm gonna do is that spin move, because the archer character, their DPS is basically all spec'd into the 2 bows that I have. Again, my longbow and my short bow. So we're just gonna farm these guys real quick here. Another advantage of the Kusarigama is there's a weapon typing in this game. So normally your character is able to use several different weapons like a spear, the chain, an odachi longsword, a dual katana. The archer class can only equip the Kusarigama and a spear. The spear is pretty slow, so we're not going to really be using it much at all. And the katana is also pretty slow. But another benefit of the Kusarigama, like I was mentioning, is you'll see a lot of enemies that carry shields. And they will block your arrows if you try to shoot at them while they have their shield up. So I can either burn it down with my fire arrows, or I can hit them with a Kusarigama spin attack, which usually ends up being quicker. Unless I already have my fire arrows out, because then you gotta wait for it to burn and everything. So this hopefully will be the last wave here. I might have to farm these guys down a little bit. So yeah, you either have to get lucky and have the shield enemy's back turned so you can hit him in the back, or just use that Kusarigama spin attack, and that'll get the job done. But yeah, like I mentioned before, also very great for crowd control, and it staggers most enemies, not those big guys. So I did get popped there a little bit. But we're about ready to go. I like to conserve as much ammo as possible for the next part, because we're about to head into our first boss fight out of 4. And the ammo drop in this section ends up being on the very far end there. That was a little tactical void out I did there to kind of get the enemies off my back so I could pop that one last shot. Something I discovered, as you might imagine, completely by accident. So something you'll notice a lot in these incursions too, some more than others, will often have these somewhat lengthy parkour sections. The gameplay here is nothing too difficult, just traversing from area to area. I think it's the game's way of kind of letting your cooldowns come back a bit, which is much appreciated. There's not really any way to skip past these or make them faster other than doing the crouch slash technique that I was doing earlier. The crouch slash is only marginally faster than running, and if you execute it improperly, you actually lose time. So I try not to rely on it too much, but it is nice for short sections. Or longer sections, rather. So we'll go ahead and activate this checkpoint here. We're about to fight our first boss, the spider. He relies very heavily on guns and artillery and fire. So he's going to be kind of using his ult right off the bat here. This huge field that covers almost the entire arena. So we're going to pop our empowered hunt. Another perk I have on my archer character is that I do 30% more damage when I'm standing within a certain range of the enemy. So I want to be as close as possible to kind of hit these shots. This ring attack here is super scary. If I get caught in it, that's a co-op mechanic actually. So if you get caught in those thorns, normally you're supposed to have a buddy be able to hit you out. But since we're solo, I would have to rely on the enemy to hit me out, which would of course also probably kill me. So not getting caught in those thorn attacks is a huge priority, in addition to damaging the boss. These thrown weapons also do a ton of damage, so if I see one on the ground close to me, I'll just try to grab one and throw it. Also helps kind of with the ammo situation a little bit. But yeah, almost like almost like a Dark Souls or Elden Ring type boss. We're just kind of waiting out the attacks to kind of get in our damage window. And I was able to kind of snipe him off the end there. Very nice. So yeah, pretty clean boss fight, and then that'll end our first incursion. This one I believe is the quickest. It's kind of surprising because it's also one of the most unscripted. The rest of them will be more or less pretty scripted. So after each of the incursions, we're going to head back to the lobby and queue up the next one. On the leaderboards, they rank by the combined in-game time. Like on the top left, you can see 9:39 combined for each of the levels that I complete. But obviously for a marathon setting, we'd be doing RTA. So my estimate is the RTA time for this category. Alright, next up, we've got the Oni. This one's going to introduce a few more mechanics. And you'll notice there's a whole bunch of other levels on that campaign screen there. There's a category that does all those too. I find them to be a bit too long for a marathon setting, and also a little bit boring because you kind of just see the same mechanics over and over again that you would see in the incursions. But of course the incursion has the added difficulty that really adds to the entertainment factor of the run. So we've got this tool called Fujin's Wind Catcher. It's just like a little vacuum tube that's going to suck up these fire sprites or Oni beat. We're going to have to grab these and put them into this little wall here. You'll see the number needed is counted up. Again, this is another co-op mechanic where you and your friend are both supposed to have a Fujin's Wind Catcher to kind of hit at the same time. So we're going to have to get creative, both in our placement of grabbing the Oni beat and then also depositing them quickly before it goes back up. So now here, unlike the last incursion, we do have to kill all these enemies here to progress. So we're just going to be taking these guys out as quick as we can using our empowered hunt. This is where the ammo situation starts to evolve a bit. And there's not a ton of RNG in this run, but the biggest RNG factor is probably my body shots, because I'm relying pretty heavily on the Hankyu short bow that auto aims, and you can fire it super fast, but it basically only hits the body. Since you can't aim it, you can't go for a headshot, which would obviously do a lot more damage. However, I do have a perk that has a 40% chance, I believe, to turn a body shot into a headshot. So 40% of the time I hit an enemy with that, we're going to be doing double damage. So in a perfect run, if you reset 1 trillion times, maybe you'll get a run where every single Hankyu shot is a headshot. So now we're up against these Yōtei spirits. You have to damage them with fire to be able to hit them. So either you just kill them in one hit or use your fire arrows here. Thankfully we've got a bunch. This guy, I can just kill him in one hit, so... Although I think I didn't full draw there, so he might be still alive. Yeah, there we go. And again, that ultimate is going to restore a little bit of ammo for us, which is really crucial for this section because I can only hold 5 fire arrows at once, and I want to use them on basically every enemy. As a backup here, you could also grab the Onibi and kind of spit it out. That counts as fire damage as well. But just at the price of being a little bit slower. So we're just going to come through here and clean up the rest of these guys. So here again, this is much easier with 2 people. We're gonna have to do kind of 2 trips here. Since our wind catcher can only hold 15, and most of these gates require 20, so we'll have to kind of pop the first round there and then come back and hit it again. And while we're waiting for the gate to open, very convenient ammo station right there. You can just grab it. And there's our first checkpoint. A little music to pass the time. So here we're going to grab another tool, Raijin Storm. This is going to be able to clear these little wards that we'll have to destroy. And then killing the enemies is also a secondary objective we'll have to complete. So we can just chuck this here, dismantle them. The order in which you do the 4 here is still kind of up in the air. I haven't quite figured out which is the best one yet. So that routing is kind of still in progress, but we're going to take this jump pad all the way over to the other side. This is going to be important routing. But that's something I love about the Hanki right there, is you can shoot midair as you're falling. I was able to get in a couple shots before I hit the ground. Saves time and quite fun. So there's our second one down. But yeah, the pathing from here on is pretty intentional. The gate at the top that we're going to have to fill with Onibi at the end of this requires 20, but there really aren't a lot of rounds for us to be able to get there in time. So we're going to have to kind of work our way backwards. And then once we're done with these, we're going to clear out some from the front of the arena and then use that jump pad again to take them all the way before grabbing the closer ones. So now that the first objective is complete, we're going to come and grab the Fujin's Wind Catcher again. So here are pretty much the only ones that are close enough together that I can grab 15 at once, while also being able to grab the 15 that are closer towards the back end of the arena. So we're gonna launch ourselves again all the way over here. Ooh, fun. Let's put these out and then come and grab the second one. And if we're quick enough, we should have just enough time before it counts back up to above 15, which thankfully we won't have to 3-cycle this. And these Onibi, if you run through them, they will follow you and apply burn damage that you can clear by rolling, like we did just there. Alright, now we're at our second checkpoint. Last part here before we get to the Oni Stronghold boss. We're going to have to bait these ballistas here to fire before we can get across. So we have 6 of them that we're going to have to destroy, and then secondary objective is to kill all these guys. And you can see it was targeting on the shield guy, so I was basically doing no damage there. Unfortunate. But again, this tech of jumping and then priming a shot and then shooting it as you fall is super handy for being able to shoot on the go. Also because there's just a lot of hostile mechanics in this game that kind of track your location. Like these ballistas here. So we can kind of prime a shot and then stay out of range as well. So we're going to kind of run up the cliff, hit these with our Steadygama. And then as we're moving, try to snipe the far ones. Perfect. Another nice thing about jumping is I use those jumps to switch back and forth between my longbow and my shortbow, which normally like you walk really slow if you have the bow menu out. But if I do it midair, I basically lose 0 speed, which is great. And I think I really haven't talked about these caltrops at all. They do stagger damage to enemies and kind of chip damage, but that's pretty secondary. Basically, I'm only using it because I have a perk on them that drops ammo. So I'll get ammo pickups every time I use one of those. So between my ammo refill there and my ult was able to make short work of that elite enemy. And finishing all those guys off. I finished it so fast I kind of second guessed if I got them all, so I had to look back for a second there. But we're just gonna roll our way through these Onimi, one more gate, and then we'll be on our way to the boss. And this Onibi mechanic is gonna come into play during the boss fight as well. One little optimization about the caltrops is it takes a second or two after you deploy it for the ammo drop to actually spawn in the world. So normally I'll drop it in a place I know I'm going to come back to, so I can drop it and then come back and pick it up with no latency. Alright, boss number 2, the Oni. This guy, we're going to employ pretty similar strats as we did to our first boss of kind of just spamming our Hankyu at him. But he's going to go into this invulnerability phase where we need 25 Onibi. More than the normal 20 that we've seen so far to clear it. Otherwise we can do 0 damage to him. Thankfully he spits out a bunch, so it's pretty easy to get that limit if you get 15 on your first go. Ammo situation's a bit strange now, so we're gonna have to kind of snipe him with the longbow. Does it count as a headshot if he doesn't have a head? Next shot. I suppose. So there's a little helpful ammo drop. And this boss is a bit more aggressive than our previous boss in terms of his melee attacks. He'll do this 4-hit combo that you kind of have to roll dodge all 4 of them. Or you can just kind of tank it. And that's definitely a situational thing, like deciding whether I want to tank the damage and keep trying to shoot and attack through it. I went for this health thing and I burned to death, so I'm gonna have to use one of my revive tokens there. Kind of unfortunate, but it doesn't, all in all, doesn't lose that much time, and it gives me a free health refill. So we'll chalk that up as a tactical death. These guys are kind of bullying me as I'm trying to move around the arena. So now he's gonna prompt his ult. This is a really bad time while he's in his invulnerability phase, because it's kind of dangerous to approach him. I was just barely able to get out without taking too much damage. So now our damage window here, we're gonna just try to fire up. You really gotta play patient here, because as soon as, you know, the ward is cleared, there's none of those little mobs around you, you just want to go all in, but then he starts doing his melee attack, so you really just kind of gotta play it patiently to avoid taking too many hits. Just gonna roll dodge through these, and then try to finish him off with our longbow. This part was pretty sketchy. I think I almost burnt to death again because I was just trying to DPS through the damage. Yeah. If I just got 1 or 2 more shots off, that would have ended the phase, but as you can tell, things are pretty hectic, and you can definitely tell that this is a boss fight meant for 2 players. Almost died again after I killed him. That would have been pretty bad, but we got out of there clean enough. And there is our second incursion complete, just 2 left. The next one coming up is the Kitsune's Hideout, which is a bit more chill. I would consider it the easiest of the 4, but that being said, there's still a lot we can do to optimize that in terms of movement and combat. And we're going to be relying a lot more heavily on our little crouch stab movement tech there. Here we're going to pick up the main mechanic for this incursion, which is a teleport. This one's super fun. And like we mentioned with the caltrops, they're dropping a little bit early, so I don't have to wait quite as long to pick up the drops. But yeah, the teleport mechanic is super fun. Just gonna zip around the map. Here we've got a wave of shinobi popping out of the snow like daisies to come kill me. So we're gonna make short work of them with my empowered hunt skill. Another thing I neglected to mention about Empowered Hunt is there's a very large chance, I can't remember the exact number, 80 or 90% I think, for hitting a shot in Empowered Hunt to refund your arrow. So another very important skill to kind of use as much as possible for ammo conservation. Here's another a new elite enemy we haven't seen yet, the Yuki Onna. If you don't kill her fast enough, she'll go and hide in these ice sculptures that you'll have to break down to find which one's the real one. She barely entered that phase before we were able to finish her off. So now we're just gonna crouch slice our way over to the next teleport. And we'll be seeing a lot more running and in this incursion than we have in the other ones. I guess the devs were very, very proud of their teleport mechanic, and they want you to use it a lot, but it's really cool. You get to pull off fun stuff like that, like assassinating from above or behind. This one I fumbled a little bit, but we were able to make short work of him with my short bow there. No pun intended. Ammo's running a bit low. It's really dangerous to fight up close with a Yumi like that because your field of vision is also quite narrow and limited, so it's really easy to get snuck up on, like just happened to me there. But my ult came back at the perfect time after farming it a bit, so I was able to regain all the ammo I needed to finish off. that phase without too much trouble. There's a mechanic here that's not going to show up very much, just a couple of times I think, but there's a pressure plate switch that we'll have to hit to kind of jump across the ropes here. And again, the parkour is relatively simple, but there are some awkward jumps here like this one. It's really easy to go too far and end up in the pit below. So just being careful with our jumps here. And then reaching our first checkpoint. Normally there's an ammo drop before a lot of the checkpoints, but for ones that don't, I try to use my cal trap there so I can recover some ammo before the next fight, because normally after a checkpoint you're immediately greeted with more waves of enemies. And then here, still in my empowered hunt, trying to make it last as long as possible, kind of standing next to that ammo drop. Here's the shield, guys. I got really lucky with my body shots turning into headshots there, so my empowered hunt was able to last a lot longer than normal there. And those shield enemies weren't able to sneak up on me like they normally would. So here's a new mechanic that we also haven't seen yet, which are the fox effigies. We're gonna have to grab torches, and again, since this is supposed to be with 4 players, all 4 players grab a torch and you throw it at once and it just instantly burns. But since there's just one of me, we're gonna have to do this 4 times while we're being, of course, accosted. So I'm gonna try to snipe these guys mid-jump. Very rude. I actually was curious if they could hit me while I was in my ledge climb animation, and I guess that answers the question. But yeah, any enemies that spawn here are also optional. The only task is to burn the effigy and then move on. This guy likes to kind of hit me from the back while the gate's opening, so I make sure to keep him off with a well-placed shot there. And I'm not doing my crouch stab run tech through this area because there are these shinobi that pop out of jars, and your stab attack can kind of auto-target them and throw you off balance and draw you into a fight, when really you can just walk right past them and not worry about it. So this part right here is just going to be another combat section. Just trying to manage my ammo appropriately, keep the enemies at bay, not get hit. A situation like that is definitely when I want to switch to my Yumi. And I got the shot off just in time because there was a group right behind me. I was able to pop my ult and stop them from doing any damage. And you can see how strong those thrown weapons are too. It did about 20% of his health on an elite enemy nonetheless. See how much longer my empowered hunt can last. It also works really well with the Yumi as well, since you get the benefit of the greater attack speed without the downside of the longer draw animation. So empowered hunt works really well for the longbow too, but of course then the manual aim adds an element of human error into it that if my shots are not true, we're losing time. So this will be our last parkour section before we reach the final arena. And this one's pretty lengthy. I think this is the longest one in the run. So these sections are definitely a perfect time for like donations and such. But of course, still trying to be tight with the movement. Take as tight turns and lines as possible. As we make our final ascent. And a very handy ammo pickup station there, so we're gonna activate the checkpoint and run back to grab this while we wait. So this last session here, we're gonna be heavily using our teleport. And this is going to be another effigy that we're going to have to burn. This is one of my favorite combat parts of the game because we can teleport and we can shoot them as we drop down. and then knock out the other guys super quick. Very flashy, very fun. Requires a pretty tight timing. So once we clear out the enemies off these 4 platforms here, grab a good refill. And then same deal as the last effigy, 4 torches to burn it. So I run down, do 1 jump, that puts us in throwing distance. Immediately teleport back up. After each one, some more enemies spawn, so we're gonna have to watch out for these guys. I experimented with kind of trying to kill them a little bit on my way back up to the platform, but they ended up just kind of scattering a bit, so I found it better to just burn the effigy completely and then take these guys out. And yeah, they were confused to where I was. They stayed clustered up in that one spot, which is very nice. It was so quick that I kind of got confused on where the checkpoint was. So now we're heading into the Kitsune boss fight. This is by far the quickest out of the 4. I'm almost able to get sub-minute, not quite. But we're going to use our empowered hunt and just kind of spam these as quickly as possible to get off as much shots as we can. Ult comes back at the perfect time. The Kitsune's boss mechanic is he has these smoke screens that he throws up to try to do sneak attacks on you, and then also his ice attacks, they lower your max health. You can see my health bar is almost completely frozen over, so I'm basically immune to any attack. Would be basically a one-shot kill at this point, so you gotta be very careful here. During these smoke phases, I like to teleport to another platform. I kind of got lost here, but it ended up working out nicely because he got stuck in the corner and I was able to just kind of back up a bit and spam my short bow. And the archers down below, they can't quite hit me because I'm far back enough. So the fact that I'm at very low max health doesn't really matter. I'll be able to make very short work of that boss. And move on to our final incursion, the Snake's Den, which is the longest by far. This one's going to introduce some new mechanics in its own turn. Some that I find to be kind of a bit bothersome, but we'll be able to get through it. Starting incursion number 4. Very fitting that our last one is going to be the longest one here, just to give us a little bit more time to hang out in the game together. And the final boss is definitely the hardest by far as well, so it's a very fitting conclusion. You're allowed to do them in any order you want, but I find it easiest to just do it in canonical order. Also, I think ending on the snake boss fight's pretty climactic. Alright, so we're gonna be introduced to the spirit cart. This is our auto-scroller friend. It's got these eyes that are gonna lead us to souls that we have to pick up to feed it. And the more souls it has, the more it'll continue down its path. And we need to take it to the end of this very long, windy path. So this is gonna be a couple minute long auto-scroller section. And the location of these souls is pretty much random. So we just kind of have to follow where the eye points to pick these up in the most optimal manner. Once we get far enough along, you can see there's kind of a scroll wheel on the card. This is medium, high, low. So it'll kind of use those as fuel and run out. If we can get it up to high by a certain point, then we can just kind of let it to its own devices and get a head start on the next section while we're waiting for the cart to catch up. And taking down these guys as we go along. The ammo routing for this section is always pretty tight, so I'm gonna basically try to drop my caltrops off cooldown to get those ammo pickups. Another thing I haven't mentioned yet is that your ammo count resets at the start of each new incursion, and they don't start you out at full, so I like to kind of do a caltrops drop early on so I can get a little bit of extra ammo to start me off. So the secondary combat feature of the cart eye is that it'll break what's an attunement. Basically, like, it's an elemental ward that causes you to do much less damage to whatever the ward is on. So in this case, there's these like Jufu totems that we have to destroy. The attunements, they come in 3 colors. There's the green one, which is storm, the blue one, which is moon, and the orange one, which is sun. And you're supposed to kind of grab them, and it applies to your weapon, and then when you hit an enemy with that matching attunement, it'll break that attunement, and you can just do normal damage to it. But the cart eye also will break attunements, and I find it quicker to run to the cart rather than drawing a new attunement each and every time. So we're able to make short work of that. Now we're going to be seeing the first of a couple of these void totems here that take a little bit longer to destroy. You have to take them down in waves, so we're just going to wait for our cart here. So we've got 3 waves of damage that we can do to it, and then in between each wave there will be some enemies that come to attack. So we're going to run in the middle, use the cart eye to break the attunements, and then we can just kind of mow them down with our short bow. Time of a full draw shot while we're waiting for the shield to break. Perfect. And kind of rinse repeat here. Using Empowered Hunt to break through the wave of enemies a bit quicker. Gonna save my ult for the last round. Something I haven't mentioned so far, actually we'll get to that in a sec. Mow these guys down here. There's a new type of elite enemy in the back there, the Summoner. He summons these purple guys that'll deal corruption damage to you. They're kind of scary, but you don't have to kill them, you just have to kill the Summoner, and the little clones will disappear on their own. Unfortunately, with the auto-targeting system, it might not give you what you want, but we're able to get kind of a good positioning there. Something I really like about this run is there's very little downtime. You're basically always moving or fighting or doing something. This is kind of the longest downtime that we'll have to wait here. Part of what makes the Snake Incursion so long. So these thrown weapons are going to come in super handy for this next part. There's going to be 6 of those Jufu totems that we're going to have to break the attunement and destroy. Bit of a lengthy section coming up here and pretty scary. Like I was going to mention earlier, each of these totems, they'll release these kind of like purple wards on the ground, and if it hits you, it'll expand, and if you get caught in it, it'll kind of stack up a corruption meter. And if that corruption meter reaches full, it's basically an insta-death for you. Here I was trying to throw down my caltrop, but I accidentally procced in a sneak strike instead. I'm trying to get the sun totem here, but my corruption meter was almost full, so I had to back out and kind of use my ult there. It's a little nicer to take out the totem first and then deal with enemies. That way you don't get those corruption waves coming at you. But it's definitely case to case. So here are these thrown weapons. It's RNG if they drop or not. Normally I'll get 1 per group here, but sometimes we can get unlucky and not get a drop. It just makes dealing with the totems a lot easier because it brings them down almost to 0 health and instantly breaks their attunement. So I mentioned that we really don't use melee much in this run. This is kind of the one exception, is enemies that have attunements, because unfortunately the bow does not carry attunements and it will not be able to break them. So we're gonna have to rely on our Kusei Gama, especially that spin attack like I mentioned. 2 hits to an enemy in with the attunement will break it. So we're just gonna kind of spam that spin move because it hits twice any enemy that's in the radius. That being said, a lot of these enemies are kind of weak enough that even if you don't break the attunement, you can mow them down pretty quickly. It'll just take a couple extra shots. Playing it a little dangerous with the corruption bar there, but we're onto our last totem here. And again, this is going to come into play during the final boss as well. Just going to use Empowered Hunt to strike down the rest of these guys. The ambush situation was getting a bit concerning, but a couple well-placed shots with a Uni. My longbow actually has a legendary perk called the Skipping Stone, where if I get a headshot with it, the arrow will bounce and hit a neighboring enemy. So I was able to basically kill 4 guys with just 2 shots there. Pretty handy. And we're back to another auto-scroller section. This is the last one of this incursion and then also of the run. And once the segment's over, we'll be on to our final boss fight. And right there's another example of kind of a tactical damage in the sense that I could dodge and avoid the damage, but I have the capacity to heal, and it would lose me about a second to dodge, so I just tank the arrow and shoot the guy at the same time. So here's going to be another one of what we saw earlier, taking down the Void totem there while dealing with waves of enemies in between. A little music while we wait for our card to catch up. Raise the spirits. We definitely want to stay close to the cart so we can grab that eye and deal with the attunements here. I decided to pop my ult pretty early, which in retrospect I maybe should have waited a bit, but this means that we can start building up our ult meter for the next wave. It's gonna run right in the middle here. These guys have a lot of shields, so we're gonna have to do quite a few spins with our Kusarigama here to break the shields. It's something I like to do early on because the more enemies that are alive, the more it raises your ult meter, and then also just to break their shields. That yellow glint is a disarming attack, so if he hits me with that, I'm gonna actually lose my Kusarigama and I'll have to go pick it up from somewhere halfway across the arena. Very good to take care of that guy before he hits me with the disarm. So the Void's down, we've got one final wave of enemies to take care of here before the final boss. So we're going to pop the ult early while we wait for them to run in. That way I don't have to go quite as far. Didn't quite get everybody, but I didn't feel like waiting. And I was like, well, I think we've got enough ammo to mow down the rest of these guys here. So we're just going to take out this final summoner here. And that's it. All that remains is the final boss. And this one is a doozy. I'm recording, I think at 30 FPS, I can't remember, but the game runs at a very smooth 60 FPS, very little lag, very little stutters. The only time between Legends and the main game that I've seen it stutter or lag at all is during this boss fight right here. So that alone should tell you how hectic it's going to be. And I actually thought of an incentive, possible incentive for the run would be to do this boss fight without the bow, our weapon that we've been relying on so heavily up to this point. But even doing so, it would increase the difficulty, but we're going to be doing most of our damage to the boss with the melee weapon anyways, because as I mentioned, the ranged weapon can't break attunement. So we're going to have to kind of use our Kusarigama to do chip damage. The problem is, he's stuck in these corruption zones. So we can't stand in there too long or we're going to basically get one shot. So this fight is really kind of a risk reward of choosing to attack through damage. If I can tank it, I'll try to keep attacking. And every so often, the snake boss, he will change his attunement, so I'll have to run and get a new one. Which makes things very annoying, because then we gotta kind of go in and match him. And our damage windows are quite small as we've got these guys coming up on us. So I love to spam the spin attack here to kind of crowd control these guys as I hit the boss. The spinning chain doesn't do as much damage to him as the sickle slice would do, but the added crowd control makes it super, super helpful. So we're gonna have to go swap attunements again. As we're running, try to pick these guys off a little bit just for a bit of crowd control. But doing this fight bowless means I would not have that crowd control. And it also means I would not be able to iframe through damages like I do with my ult sometimes. The handy thing about these purple summons here is if you kill one, you gain a temporary invulnerability to corruption. That's that white bar right there. So I'm not taking any corruption, and it's actually going down. So killing those guys kind of gives you a bit of a window where you can attack freely without having to worry about corruption damage. Just, you know, all the 5,000 other things going on the screen at this time. Trying to clear these guys out so I can grab the storm attunement is proving to be quite a bit of a challenge. Popping the ult to kind of crowd control there. Kill that guy so I get my invulnerability. Oh, and he's going to use his ult. I need to get out of this field. I was kind of thinking maybe I just attack through it. No, it didn't have quite enough time, so we're going to run out. Drop my caltrops there to stun them. Just gonna clear these guys out with my powered hunt really quick. And of course, right as I'm done, he starts his 4-hit combo. His is pretty much the same as the Oni's. You just gonna have to roll dodge through it. And of course, as he's like 4 hits away from being defeated, he changes his attunement once again. And at this point, it's quicker to just mow him down with the less damage than to go grab another one. And there we go. That is the boss fight complete, and we are done with our run in 3, 2, 1, and time. 4643 RTA. This was a PB that I set earlier today at the time of this recording. Again, on the leaderboard, these are timed by load remove time, so just the combined in-game time for each segment added together. But obviously for marathon setting, it'll be RTA. And there you go. This was my submission for Ghost of Yōtei Legends All Incursions. There's definitely some more progress that can be made. I'm still grinding in this game to get better gear and kind of improve the stats on my gear, which will add a little bit of DPS here and there and make the run just a bit faster. And of course, no run is complete until we pet the fox at the end. I hope you enjoyed this submission. Thank you so much for watching.